War of the Scaleborn by Courtney Alameda. Chapter 1. What have you done, Alexstrasza? Viranoth wondered as she soared over the rising spires of Valdrakken. What is this place? In all her long years, Viranoth had never seen dragonkind build such strange eyries. Alexstrasza, Viranoth's oldest friend and the newly made Dragon Queen, had called Valdrakken a city. Viranoth rolled the word over her tongue, thinking it tasted like Titan magic. City? A foreign word befitting of a foreign place. Viranoth understood none of the sights below, hand-wrought stone spires perched upon the mountains of Theladris. Rivers ran through the sky on gilded spines. Floating islands nested in the clouds, their waterfalls tumbling into the open air. Young drakes chased one another, nipping at each other's tails and laughing. Dragons roosted on grand platforms, talking together and enjoying the beauty of the day. Valdrakken, city? A place that seemed to radiate peace, and yet dark doubts crept into Viranoth's heart. Every dragon in sight bore the mark of the Keeper's order magic, which had utterly transformed them, mind, body, and soul. Viranoth did not recognize ordered as dragons. On the ground, the ordered folded their wings against their backs like birds, whereas natural primal dragons like Viranath relied upon their wings both on the ground and in the air. The ordered did not look like proper dragons, not any more. By embracing this strange power, Alexstrasza and her followers had turned their backs on the very planet that had given them life. As a primal dragon in Valdrakken, Viranoth was an outsider among her own. So many of you have chosen the keepers over your own kind, she thought. With a great flap of her wings, she crested one of the city's peaks. Even as she cruised along the city's outskirts, she counted hundreds of ordered dragons, their jeweled-toned hides glittering in hues of blue, black, bronze, green, and red. Each color represented one of the 5 dragonflights led by an individual dragon aspect. The 5 aspects had been the first to be infused with the Keeper's order magic, to embark on a dangerous path, to turn their backs on the natural order of things. Now they had convinced so many others to follow them into this folly. Viranoth checked her speed, then dived beneath an arch of ornamented stone. The shadows of her wings rippled over the city's jarring angles and sharp golden edges. Below her, the Titan Forge swarmed over the mountains like flies on a carcass, carving stone from the rocky flanks to build their spires and arches. Even if the aspects streamed up Valdrakken on their own, the city brimmed with their master's power. Here the Keeper's influence was omnipresent, inescapable. Order imbued the very wind that filled Viranoth's wings, nostrils, and lungs, sending a shudder across her scales. Had Viranoth not made a promise to Alexstrasza, she would have turned tail and never looked back, yet Viranoth was a dragon of her word. Today, the Dragon Queen and the Red Dragonflight would swear an oath to defend their world, Azeroth. Azeroth, Alexstrasza had called it, though it sounded like yet another Titan word. Alexstrasza had personally invited Viranoth to the ceremony. Perhaps she hoped that Viranoth could be convinced of the righteousness of the aspect's cause. Viranoth knew her old friend to be honorable and true. Alexstrasza would not have chosen this path without good reason. Still, Viranoth's doubts remained. Why should dragons have to change themselves to fulfill the wishes of the keepers? To her mind, it made no sense. A great trumpeting echoed off the city spires. On instinct, Viranoth banked towards the sound, sweeping past the hollow bones of a half-finished spire. A multitude of dragons took flight, their scales flashing in the sun. The thundering of their wings whipped up the wind and turned the clouds into a froth. Had Viranoth not been so unsettled by the sight, she might have found it exhilarating. She climbed higher with ease, lofted by the air currents that swirled off 1,000 wings. Viranoth, my friend, a red dragon glided into Viranoth's airstream. Like all ordered dragons, the red had a sinuous, elongated neck and longer forelegs, which when on the ground would allow him to stand on 4 feet rather than 2. The ordered had slim heads and lacked a primal dragon's thick, impenetrable armor on the skull and spine. This particular red had 2 heavy twisting horns on the top of his head and frills over each eyes. The red was accompanied by a small contingent of other reds, 4 to be exact. In the dragon wilds, no one would have dared approach Viranoth with such an uneasy manner, especially not in a pack. Had the Keeper's magic made them forget the customs of their kind? I am Sarastras, said the first red, performing an elegant roll in the air, as if in greeting. Major Domo to the Dragon Queen Alexstrasza has asked me to be your escort during your stay in Theladris. I thank you, but that shall not be necessary, Viranoth said, not wanting to defend. I do not plan to stay in Valdrakken for long. Alexstrasza thought you might say that, Sarastras said with a laugh. And she was right. You speak very well for one of your kind. Your kind. Viranoth narrowed her eyes but said nothing. At the very least, allow me to show you where today's ceremonies are to be held, Sarastras said. You are our honored guest. Very well, Varanoth replied, following the major domo as he banked right. The other Reds followed them, close in pursuit. As they came around the corner, the whole of Valdrakken opened to them. A white spire rose in the distance, scraping the clouds overhead. Rivers flowed around its base. Lush purple-leafed trees clustered close along their banks. At its peak, there looked to be a landing platform of sorts. That is the seat of the aspects, Sarastras said, his voice lilting with pride. The tower is the soul of Valdrakken, where our honored aspects conduct business on behalf of the five flights, but the seat is not our destination today. Come, Viranath, and let me show you Tyrhold. Tyrhold? Viranath asked, suppressing a harsher tone. She recognized that name. Alexstrasza had spoken to her often of Keeper Tyr and his interference in the affairs of dragonkind. If she recalled correctly, Tyr had been the one to suggest the aspects be ordered. Yes, a great edifice in the east, Sarastras said, nodding to the stone rivers. It is the source of the life-giving waters carried by aqueducts throughout the city. Aqueducts, Viranoth said, testing the word carefully, looking for water shimmering below. Tell me, why is it important to move the water from one place to another? Why must you remove it from its source, especially when it flows in such abundance throughout the broodlands? The water serves many purposes in Valdrakken, the major dormer said as they crested a hill. It is easier to conduct the water via aqueducts than by any other method. Viranoth looked at Sarastras from the corner of her eye, lifting a brow. He chuckled. I admit, Valdrakken was startling at first, the buildings, the aqueducts, the temples, the gardens, but I promise you it will make more sense in time. Buildings, Viranoth thought. Temples? What need does dragonkind have for such things? Nothing about Valdrakken made sense to Viranoth, and she wasn't certain that she wanted that to change. Her escort led her past a waterfall that splashed down a mountain's face. Cool mist dampened their wings. They swept over neatly tended emerald gardens that filled the air with the scent of sweet honey, then dipped past the scalding heat of the black dragonflight's forges. There should have been a certain delight in following Sarastras through the city, and swooping beneath its arches, and scudding over the clouds, and listening to the joyous calls of the dragons as they headed for the ceremony. Yet, everywhere Viranoth looked, all she could see was that Valdrakken could have been without the Titan's influence. How tall had that mountain stood before it had been whittled down into buildings by the Titan forged? Why had the gardens been pruned into an orderly perfection rather than be allowed to flourish and grow in their own wild designs? And what of the noble, primal silhouette her brothers and sisters once had? The strong carriages, the majestic bearings, why had those too been carved away for order's sake? Where the Titans had found flaws, Viranoth saw unbroken beauty. The world needed no improvements, no Titans, no order magic. Perhaps the world did not need cities and buildings and aspects either. Sarastras and Viranoth skirted the flank of a sharp cliff. A grand spire rose in the distance. No, Sarastras had called it a tower, and its white marble walls gleamed in the sunlight. The towers pointed to the heavens, shooting a bright beam of light into the sky. Tall white stones encircled its base, reminding Viranoth of outstretched wings. All the rivers in Valdrakken seemed to flow from its source. Tyrhold, Viranoth thought, her lip curling in upset. Hundreds upon thousands of dragons hovered around the tower, darkening the sky with their wings. So many of you, Viranoth thought, casting her gaze over the assembly. How could so many of you have chosen this path? Easily rejected yourselves and everything you once were. Welcome to Tyrhold, Sarastras said. Come, the Dragon Queen has requested your attendance on the main platform. You are to be in the presence of the aspects themselves. What an honor, Viranoth said flatly. If Sarastras noticed her discomfort, he said nothing. They alighted on the main platform. Great stone ribs rose high overhead. Pillars, the major domo said when he caught her looking at them. The peaks of Soladris loomed on either side of the tower, proud and powerful. The keeper's presence was at its thickest here, creating a dull ache in the base of Viranoth's skull. It hummed in her ears like the silence after a thunderclap, and crawled under her scales like a mite's. Perhaps order magic had made their influence easier to bear, but Viranoth could hardly stand it even for an instant. A crowd assembled on the platform. Viranoth thought she recognized a few among them. That large ancient red had to be Tyrannistraz, Alexstras's consort and confidant. His brown scales were now the warm, brilliant color of heart's blood. He turned his head as if he'd sensed Viranoth's gaze. He gave her a nod in greeting. Viranoth returned the gesture, careful to keep her expression even. Inside, however, her heart was a maelstrom. To think that a dragon of his stature had accepted the keeper's shackles. Perhaps he had done it out of love for his mate. Or perhaps in all his wisdom Tir-Anastraz saw something in order magic that Viranoth could not. An unfamiliar shade crept into Viranoth's heart. What wisdom was there in accepting a power that fundamentally altered who you were? Were dragons not noble enough, not courageous enough, not strong enough, without the Keeper's magic? Tir-Anastraz wasn't the only one. As Viranoth cast her gaze over the assembly, she did not see a single natural-born dragon. She barely recognized Malagos, now the blue aspect, whose eyes glowed with arcane fire. Runes shimmered over his wings. His mate, Sindragosa, stood at his side, speaking to another blue dragon. Sindragosa tossed her head and laughed at something the blue said. Alexstrasza's sister Ysera had become the green dragon aspect. Her scales had deepened to the color of spring leaves, and a set of 4 great golden horns adorned her head. Flowers sprouted beneath her talons. She stood surrounded by her flight, all dragons who Viranoth could not name. Smaller creatures frolicked in the shade of their wings. Butterflies danced in the air around them. Even from this distance, Viranoth could smell the verdant life emanating from the green dragon flight, budding grass and wet earth. On the other side of the chamber, Norsdomu shifted his wings, sending up a cloud of shimmering bronze sand. Alexstrasza said he could now manipulate time itself. Norsdomu had been powerful before accepting the Keeper's magic, but to be able to manipulate time itself, she could not fathom such an ability. Finally, she turned her attention to Neltharion, the black dragon aspect. She knew of him from Alexstrasza's stories, but had not been acquainted with him personally. He stood taller and broader than the other 3 aspects. His scales were as black as char and as gleaming as obsidian. According to Alexstrasza, the Keepers gave Neltharion dominion over the earth and its deep places. Alexstrasza herself, however, was nowhere to be seen. The aspects were surrounded by members of the red dragonflight, and there were even more red dragons gliding in the sky above. The aspects circled a white stone carved to resemble a dragon safeguarding a gemstone with its wings. A large blood-red ruby was set into the spire's base. Even from where she stood, Viranoth could sense the magic from within the stone. "What is that object?" Viranoth asked, nodding to the carving. "It is the oath stone of the red dragonflight," Sarastraz replied. "Beautiful, is it not? Once empowered, it will become a symbol of our promise to defend Azeroth and all its denizens. The red dragonflight plans to house it at the Ruby Life Pools, once we have finished our construction." Oath stone? Ruby Life Pools? Viranoth wondered. This was all so strange. The longer Viranoth lingered in Valdrakken, the more unsettled she became. None of this seemed natural. How could Sarastraz follow the aspects so fully and unquestioningly? "Tell me, Sarastraz," Viranoth asked, her throat dry. "Why did you choose to be infused with order magic?" Sarastraz was silent for a moment, considering her question. He made a humming noise in his throat, then said, "Galakron changed things for our kind. He showed us, no, the aspects showed us, that dragons are stronger when we work together." "How could you not have supported Alexstrasza as you were," she asked, "in your true state?" "I suppose." He smiled and spread his wings, gesturing to the dragons who filled the space around them. "But I wanted to be a part of the Red Dragonflight. I wanted to be something greater than myself, to witness the heights the aspects would help us reach. There is no higher calling in this world." Viranoth's stomach churned, but she made no reply. Before she could ask anything further, a roar reverberated through the crowd. Movement drew her gaze to the tower's base. The doors of Tierhold had been thrown open and Alexstrasza stepped outside, her head held high. Like the other aspects, she was wholly changed. Sunlight glinted off her gold-tipped horns. Her scale shimmered vermilion. Alexstrasza now walked on 4 feet with her wings tucked against her back, her movements swift and sure. Viranoth could still see hints of her old friend under the ordered exterior. Alexstrasza had always emanated gentleness and kindness. Most dragons would find it difficult to match her grace and charisma. Her eyes glinted with fierce, unyielding intelligence. She was Alexstrasza, and yet she was not Viranoth's Alexstrasza. She was the Lifebinder, the Dragon Queen, the Red Aspect, leader of the Red Dragonflight. The thought drove shards of ice into Viranoth's heart. A bipedal figure strode out with Alexstrasza, one who resembled the Titan-forged creatures who scurried about the city. This one, however, stood taller than the rest of the Titan-forged, and wore garments of crimson and gold. One of his limbs gleamed silver in the light. "Ah," Viranoth thought, recalling the tales Alexstrasza had told her of Galakron, "that one is Keeper Tyr." She suppressed a growl. Tyr had ordered the aspects and charged them with the creation of the dragonflights. He had been the one to teach dragons about cities and buildings. No doubt Tyr had coerced Alexstrasza into this ceremony. Why else would she need to make a public pledge to protect their world? Was her intention not enough? Was her sacrifice not enough? Alexstrasza halted before the oath stone. spreading her wings in welcome. Greetings, my friends. Full glad am I to see you all assembled on such a momentous occasion. A great cheer resounded through the skies and shook the stones beneath Vyranoth's feet. It echoed off the peaks of Valdrakken in a rising chorus. I extend a heavy welcome to my fellow aspects in their flights this day, Alexstrasza continued, and I am thankful that our benefactor, Tyr, has joined us for this event. More cheers this time. Sarastraz lifted his head and added a bugling call to the celebrations. Today, the Red Dragon Flight will be the first to make a sacred pledge, Alexstrasza said. As we empower the oathstone of our flight, we swear to protect and defend the world from harm, not just to Azeroth itself, but also to the Keepers. Alexstrasza nodded to Tyr. And to one other, in the coming days the dragons of green, black, blue, and bronze will hold similar ceremonies and empower the oathstones that their flights have created. This is madness, Vyranoth muttered under the dragon's joyful shouts. In her heart of hearts, she wanted to rush Alexstrasza and beg her to reconsider her actions. She wanted to bristle her mane and chase Keeper Tyr out of the Broodlands. She wanted to call out to the assembly and have them rend Tyrhold from the mountainside. But Vyranoth did none of these things. Alexstrasza had made her choice. The Dragon Queen approached the Red Dragonflight's oathstone with the Keeper. Now let us begin, she said, spreading her wings wide. The dragons in the chamber fell silent. I, Alexstrasza the Lifebinder, she began solemnly, aspect of the Red Dragonflight and Queen of the Five Flights, do swear to defend Azeroth this day. The oathstones shot a beam of ruby-red light into the heavens. The light tinged the skies with a sunset, scattering pink and orange hues across the clouds. Dragons gasped in wonder. I charge the Red Dragonflight to protect all life, Alexstrasza said, her scales reflecting the oathstone's ruby glow. Whether it be found in the emerald plains of the Broodlands, or high atop the mountain peaks of Kalimdor, deep within the oceans, or in the desert climes, we vow to maintain harmony and peace in this world. The ruby light emanated out from the oathstone, spreading among the assembly. Cries of glee and delight stole through the crowd, and the oathstone's magic touched the red dragons. When it drew close to Vyranoth, she backed away in fear. Beside her, Sarastraz sucked in a breath. Light danced across his scales, which flamed as red as the sun-kissed horizon. This magic, Sarastraz said under his breath. His eyes widened with wonder. It is so warm. I have never felt anything quite like this. Vyranoth only growled, keeping low to the ground. The Oathstone's magic burned in her heart, beckoning to her. She snarled, pushing away its temptation. On this day, Alexstrasza continued, each red dragon is granted a greater measure of courage, empathy, and resilience. May you show bravery in the face of danger, seek common ground with your enemies, and always have the strength to take to the skies in the defense of the beloved home that we live in. So long as we draw breath, Azeroth shall not fall by wing and by talon. We shall see it done. On behalf of the Red Dragonflight, this I swear upon our oathstone, Alexstrasza concluded. Keeper Tyr stopped forward next. As an envoy of the Titans, I accept your oaths this day. Tyr extended his giant silver hand towards the oathstone and sealed them here in stone. May this oathstone stand as a reminder of the pledge the Red Dragonflight has made, not just to me, but to this world. Fly well and wisely. May you fulfill the measure of your ordering. A final glittering burst of red light exploded from the oathstone, so powerful that it rattled Vyranoth's teeth. Another cheer rose, a chorus of voices that lifted high on the winds, and as the other aspects stepped forward to congratulate Alexstrasza, Vyranoth turned to Sarastraz, her stomach churning. Before I return to the wild, she said, I would like to have a private word with Alexstrasza, if I may. But of course, Sarastraz said, his scales still aglow with the Oathstone's magic. Wait here, and I will make arrangements with the Dragon Queen. A short time later, Sarastraz led Vyranoth to a bright cavern within the seat of the aspects. Though cavern wasn't quite the word for the place, Vyranoth paused at the threshold, lifted her gaze, then drew in a sharp, surprised breath. Never in her life had she seen such beauty. The chamber was lit with a soft aquamarine light, as if filtered through a warm southern sea. Two stone dragons reared before a stunning stained glass mural. Sarastraz's words, that portrayed dragons in flight. The glass glimmered in red, green, blue, bronze, and black, each color representing one of the 5 dragonflights. I must return to my duties, but Queen Alexstrasza will meet you here in the antechamber, Sarastraz said, almost by way of apology. Keeper Tyr requests an impromptu audience with the aspects, and they have only just arrived. I do not expect them to be long. Very well, Vyranoth replied, though she was anxious to quit the city. Sarastros dipped his head. If there is anything else you need, the Draconid will assist you. With another bow of his head, the major domo turned and exited the antechamber, leaving her alone. The two red Draconids stood watch outside, giving Viranoth her privacy. The antechamber's only egress point seemed to be its entrance, and the thought put Viranoth on edge. The Draconid were more manifestations of the Titan's stain, Terrasect, taken and twisted by order magic. Were natural Terrasect not enough for the Keepers? Must they, too, be befouled by magic? Viranoth knew she need not be troubled. Alexstrasza's heart remained noble and true, and the Dragon Queen would not force order magic upon anyone. Still, she could not ignore the doubt that creeped into her mind. It mingled with the yearning, too, which left Viranoth adrift on uncertain winds. While Viranoth rejected the idea of submitting to Keeper's order magic, she liked the idea of Dragonkind living together in harmony. Like Alexstrasza, Viranoth believed Dragonkind could achieve greater things when they worked together, that perhaps they needed one another. The Birdlands were home to many dragons, both ordered and primal, but the aspects had clearly delineated territories in which their word was law. The Waking Shores, the Emerald Plains, the Azure Span, and Theladris. The Broodlands was surrounded by the greater dragon wilds, where most of the primal dragons had retreated after the aspects began ordering new dragons. Much as Viranoth did not mind this arrangement in theory, trusting the Keepers seemed like a folly. Tyr had helped the aspects destroy Galakron, but beyond this, Viranoth had no reason to trust his motives. Minutes passed, stretching longer. The sun changed its slant. Just as Viranoth considered taking her leave, an oblong-shaped light flared at the top of the staircase, middle of the room. Viranoth had seen the blue dragonflight creating similar magical rifts before. She believed they called them portals. Keeper Tyr emerged from the light, followed closely by Alexstrasza. Paying Viranoth no heed, Tyr said, "Think carefully upon my words, Alexstrasza. I only wish to see your dragonflights thrive." Alexstrasza lifted her chain and narrowed her eyes, a subconscious gesture that had forever signaled her polite disagreement. To see her do it now in order form was unsettling. "I will consider your counsel," Alexstrasza said. The keeper nodded. "See that you do." Alexstrasza's eyes narrowed further as the keeper turned away. Viranoth cocked her head, thinking, so, the Dragon Queen appears to retain her free will, but the keeper still seeks to exert control over her. What is it that Tyr wants Alexstrasza to do? "For now I shall take my leave of Valdrakken," Tyr said, starting down the steps. "I will return when Neltharion and the Black Dragonflight are ready to empower their Oathstone." "Very well," Alexstrasza said. Keeper Tyr swept past Viranoth, barely sparing her a glance. As soon as he was gone, Alexstrasza shed her solemnity. "Viranoth," she cried, bounding down the stairs. She pressed her cheek to Viranoth's. "Words cannot express how glad I am to see you, my friend. Thank you for coming." The joy in her voice melted the ice in Viranoth's heart. "And I you," Viranoth said. Alexstrasza still smelled like herself, at least, though there was a new underlying note that Viranoth couldn't identify. To her palate it seemed to be the scent of smoke and stardust, something not of their world. "Tell me, was your journey a good one?" Alexstrasza asked. "Have you eaten?" "The winds were calm, the broodlands have blossomed under your care." Alexstrasza beamed, her golden eyes glowing. "I would love to show you more. The gardens of Valdrakken, perhaps? Or perhaps the new construction on Neltharion's obsidian citadel? There are so many wonders to share. Give me but a moment to inform the other aspects, and then we may take flight." Before Viranoth could muster the answer, Alexstrasza turned to the portal and started back up the stairs. "That will not be necessary," Viranoth said, trying to take the cold bite out of her tone. Alexstrasza pivoted back to face her friend. "What do you mean? I was hoping we might at least spend the afternoon together." "You know, I treasure our friendship, Alexstrasza, but this—" Viranoth trailed off, shaking her head. "If you have something to say, please continue." Alexstrasza used a hint of that same diplomatic, queenly tone that she had used with the keeper. "You've always been my most honest and straightforward friend, Viranoth. You know that you can be true with me." Viranoth prided herself in her sincerity and forthrightness. But somehow that issue felt more fraught than most. To criticize order magic was to criticize Alexstrasza herself. Viranoth needed to choose her next words carefully. She no more wanted to hurt her friend than she wanted to bend to the keeper's will. "You are following unknown winds, my friend, and I worry for you," Viranoth said. "You are the most honorable of our kind, Alexstrasza. I loved you as you were, and it pains me to see you bow, to change yourself for another. I fear the keepers seek to exert control over you and your flights." "My agency remains inviolated," Alexstrasza said. "Tyr offers the guidance he can, but my decisions are my own." What will you do if he asks you to force dragons to join your flights? Svirnoth asked. Will you disregard the desires of those who disagree with you? No, never, Alexstrasza said with a shake of her head. I have sworn that order magic will always be a choice. Swear to me then, Vyranoth said. Swear to me that you will never force a primal dragon to bow to the will of the keepers. Alexstrasza looked Vyranoth square in the eye. I swear it. In all their long years of friendship, Vyranoth had never known Alexstrasza to lie. Deceit wasn't in her nature. And yet, the Alexstrasza standing before Vyranoth today was not the same dragon who Vyranoth had known through the long ages. The Keeper's magic altered Alexstrasza's physical form. Had it changed her integrity too? Would she, like her keepers, do anything to achieve her goals, even lie to one of her oldest and dearest friends? Vyranoth could not answer these questions. Only time could do that. I trust you, Alexstrasza, Vyranoth said, leaning forward and pressing her forehead into her friend's. But I do not trust your keepers.